of careful saving gone. When I opened my banking app, I saw the truth. My sister had drained every dollar and sent it to her unemployed boyfriend. I'm Sabrina, a pharmacist trained to stay calm in emergencies. But in that moment, I felt myself unravel. And I knew this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about choosing justice over blood. The receptionist at St. Luke's Hospital gave me that tight, apologetic smile people use when they're about to say something you're not ready to hear. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The card was declined." For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake. I'd rehearsed this moment for years, walking up to the intake desk, swiping my card, signing whatever they put in front of me, so my mom could get the surgery she needed. I had built that fund dollar by dollar from my pharmacy shifts, skipping vacations, skipping upgrades, skipping everything. That wasn't essential. My hands felt strangely numb as I stepped aside and opened my banking app. Zero. Not low, not pending. Zero. And then I saw the transfer history. Every single dollar moved out of my account just hours earlier. Sent to one person, Kendra, my little sister. My chest tightened so hard, I thought I might pass out right there in the lobby. I dialed her number immediately, my fingers trembling against the screen. I kept telling myself there had to be some explanation. Fraud, a misunderstanding, some bizarre error that would clear up in seconds. She picked up on the third ring. "Hey," she said casually, like we were talking about brunch plans. "Kendra." I managed, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Why is my account empty?" There was a pause. Not shocked, not confused. "Measured?" "Oh," she said. "Yeah, I transferred the money." The way she said it, so calm, so matter-of-fact, made my stomach drop. "Transferred it where I asked, even though I already knew." "To Jared," she replied. "He needed capital for an investment. It's time-sensitive." I felt the hospital lobby tilt around me. "That was Mom's surgery fund," I whispered. "She's being prepped for heart surgery." Kendra sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "You're overreacting. Jared found a high-yield crypto opportunity. It'll double in a week. Then we can afford a better private facility for Mom. This hospital isn't even that good." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was gambling our mother's life on some vague promise of doubled returns. "You stole from me," I said, my voice cracking now. "You stole from her." "It's not stealing," she snapped. "It's investing. You've always been so short-sighted, Sabrina." That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger yet. Something colder. I ended the call without another word and walked toward the ICU. The heavy doors closed behind me, muffling the chaos of the hallway. Inside, everything smelled sterile and too clean. Machines beeped in soft, steady rhythms. My mom looked so small in that hospital bed. Tubes, wires, a thin blanket pulled up to her chest. When she saw me, she tried to smile. "Everything paid?" she asked gently. I sat down beside her and felt my throat tighten. I've delivered bad news before. As a pharmacist, I've had to explain side effects, terminal diagnoses, impossible odds. But nothing prepared me for this. "Mom," I said, slowly, "the surgery fund is gone." She frowned slightly. "Gone. Kendra transferred all of it to her account this morning. She sent it to Jared." I held out my phone so she could see the transaction history. The numbers glowed on the screen, cold, undeniable. She stared at it for a long time. Then she shook her head. "No," she said softly. "That doesn't make sense." "It's right here," I insisted. "Every dollar." "There must be a mistake," she whispered. "Kendra would never do that. She wouldn't take money meant for me." Her voice wasn't angry, it was protective of Kendra. She said it's for some crypto investment, I told her. She thinks it'll double. Mom's eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite read. Hope, maybe, or desperation. Well, maybe she's trying to help, she murmured. Maybe she's holding it somewhere safe. You know how banks can make errors. I felt a sharp ache in my chest. It wasn't a bank error. It was a direct transfer. She wouldn't hurt me. Mom insisted, her voice trembling now. You two fight, but she loves me. She wouldn't put me at risk. It was like watching someone refuse to see a fire, even while the smoke filled the room. I couldn't let this stay abstract. I needed her to hear it. So I dialed again and put the phone on speaker. This time a male voice answered. What Jared said already irritated. Put Kendra on, I demanded. He laughed under his breath. Why are you being dramatic? I already told you it's invested. High yield, double by next week. Then the old lady can get whatever treatment she wants. My mom's eyes widened slightly at his tone, but she didn't interrupt. Don't call her that, I snapped. Kendra's voice came on a second later, sharp and defensive. You've always been jealous of Jared. He understands money better than you. We're trying to upgrade Mom's care, not downgrade it. The call ended in a burst of accusations and half-finished sentences. When the line went dead, my mom began to cry. Not loud sobs, quiet, broken ones. Please, she begged, gripping my hand with surprising strength. Don't call the police. If this gets out, it'll ruin her future. She'll have a record. She won't recover from that. I stared at her stunned. She was lying in a hospital bed, facing heart surgery without funds, and she was worried about the reputation of the daughter who'd taken everything. In that moment, I understood something painful. I wasn't just fighting my sister. I was fighting years of favoritism, years of excuses, years of blind love that had grown into something dangerous. I gently pulled my hand away. If the money isn't back in 24 hours, I said quietly, I will handle it. Her eyes filled with fear, not of Jared, not of losing her home, of me. And as I walked out of that ICU room, I realized something that made my steps feel heavier than they'd ever been. I might have to save her without her permission. The next 3 days felt like living underwater. Everything moved slower. Sound was muffled. Breathing took effort. Kendra promised the money would double by next week, but the week hadn't even started, and already there was nothing. No returned calls, no updates, no proof of any investment. Just silence, heavy, suffocating silence. Meanwhile, the hospital bills didn't pause out of courtesy. To keep my mom on the surgery schedule, I drained my personal emergency fund without hesitation. The account I swore I'd only touch if my own life depended on it. I transferred everything. It still wasn't enough. So I did something I never imagined I would. I asked 2 colleagues for short-term loans. I told them it was a temporary cash flow issue. I didn't have the strength to explain that my sister had gambled away our mother's heart surgery. Mom stayed in her hospital bed, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. Every time it buzzed with a spam notification or pharmacy reminder, her eyes lit up with fragile hope. She'll fix it, she kept saying. Kendra wouldn't let me down. I stopped responding. By the 3rd evening, exhaustion was sitting in my bones. That's when Valerie came over. Valerie has been my best friend since pharmacy school. She's the kind of person who doesn't panic when things fall apart. She organizes them. She walked into my kitchen, took one look at the stack of scattered papers on the table, and rolled up her sleeves without asking questions. Show me everything, she said gently. Earlier that morning, I had gone to my bank branch in person. I asked for a full printed transaction history, not the summarized version, everything. If Jared had invested the money like he claimed, there would be a paper trail wire transfers to brokerages, crypto exchanges, something legitimate. Valerie and I sat under the dim yellow light of my dining room lamp, highlighters in hand, flipping through page after page. At first, I tried to cling to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, there was an account number that led somewhere credible. But then I saw it. A TM withdrawal, $1,000. Another one, $800. Another, $600, all within hours of each other. The locations made my stomach twist. Small towns, gas stations, off-highway stops, and then one detail that made the room feel suddenly colder. The transactions were clustered near the Nevada state border. Valerie went very still. "Keep going," she murmured. "Liquor store purchase, $497. Hotel and casino resort charge, $236. Another casino, another cash withdrawal." The numbers blurred for a moment. Because my eyes were filling with tears, I refused to let fall. "This isn't investing," Valerie said quietly, tapping the page with her manicured finger. "This is a spree." The crypto story evaporated in an instant. There was no high-yield opportunity, no private medical facility upgrade, no temporary liquidity issue. There were slot machines, poker tables, complimentary drinks, and comped rooms. I leaned back in my chair, feeling something deeper than anger. It was humiliation. I had stood in a hospital lobby defending my composure while my sister and her boyfriend were feeding dollar bills into machines. I knew he gambled, I admitted. He'd brag about poker nights like he was some kind of genius. But I thought it was small-time stuff. I never thought Kendra would bankroll it. Valerie didn't sugarcoat her response. "She didn't just bankroll it," she said. "She handed him your mother's life savings." The words landed hard. We kept reviewing the timestamps. The pattern was obvious now. Withdraw, casino, liquor store, hotel, repeat. There was no delay for market fluctuations, no waiting period for returns. The money moved fast because it was being burned fast. I slammed my palm against the table before I could stop myself. "They were supposed to be doubling it for surgery," I said, my voice shaking. Instead, they were doubling down. Valerie gathered the highlighted pages into a neat stack. Her expression shifted from sympathetic to serious. "Sabrina, listen to me," she said carefully. "People who spiral like this don't stop when they hit zero. They look for the next source." I felt a chill creep up my spine. "They already took the liquid cash," she continued. "What's the next biggest asset?" I didn't want to answer, but I knew. The house, the old 2-story home we grew up in, the one my father left to Mom, the one filled with memories and creaky floorboards and family dinners that felt simpler than this nightmare. To me, it was history. To Jared, it was equity. "They'll come back," Valerie said bluntly. "And they won't come back apologizing. They'll come back needing more." I looked around my kitchen at the familiar cabinets, the worn countertop, the window that faced the front yard where we used to rake leaves every fall. For the first time, I didn't see comfort. I saw a target, the weight of everything pressed down on me at once. The hospital bills, the casino receipts, my mom's denial, the possibility that this wasn't over. Something inside me hardened. I had spent years being the responsible one, the calm one, the fixer. But this wasn't something I could fix quietly. I gathered the stack of bank statements and slid them into a folder. They're not getting another cent, I said slowly. Valerie held my gaze. Are you ready for what that might mean? I thought about my mom checking her phone every 5 minutes, about Jared laughing over speakerphone, about the liquor store charge sitting on the same page as the hospital deposit I couldn't make. Yes, I answered, because whatever they were planning next, I wasn't gonna let them take it. Saturday mornings used to feel peaceful. That one shattered at the sound of an engine roaring into our driveway like it owned the place. I was in the living room, steadying my mom as she practiced taking a few careful steps between the sofa and the coffee table. Her surgery was still pending. She was weaker than she liked to admit, but she was trying. The engine cut off abruptly. A car door slammed, then another. My stomach dropped before I even looked out the window. A sleek sports car sat in the driveway, glossy and expensive-looking sunlight glinting off its polished hood. It didn't belong in front of our modest family home. It looked like it had taken a wrong turn into the wrong life. The front door swung open without a knock. Kendra walked in first heels, clicking confidently against the hardwood floor. She was wearing a brand new designer coat, her hair perfectly, styled a leather handbag draped over her shoulder that probably cost more than my mom's monthly medication. Jared followed behind her, hands in his pockets, chin lifted like he was entering a boardroom. Not a single apology. Not even a "how are you feeling?" My mom froze mid-step. "Kendra," she said softly. Jared didn't greet her. He walked straight to the sofa and dropped a thick folder onto the coffee table like he was presenting a business proposal. "We had a small liquidity snag," he said, casually, sitting down and stretching his legs out. "It's temporary. We just need some revolving capital to stabilize things." I stared at him. "What does that mean?" I asked flatly. He slid the folder toward my mom. "It means she needs to sign these." I stepped forward before she could reach for it. I opened the folder and felt my pulse spike. Power of attorney paperwork, drafted to authorize a high-interest mortgage loan against the full equity of the house. "You've got to be kidding me," I said. "It's simple," Jared continued, as if explaining something obvious. "We leverage the house. I redeem the deed in 2 weeks. Once the investment clears, everyone wins." Everyone. I repeated, my voice shaking now. "You drained her surgery fund at casinos, and now you want to gamble her home too." His jaw tightened. Kendra suddenly exploded. "Stop twisting everything, Sabrina. You always assume the worst about him." I turned the pages, scanning the fine print. The interest rate alone made me nauseous. This wasn't some bridge loan. It was predatory. "Mom," I said carefully, "this would put the house at risk. If they default..." "We won't default," Jared snapped. "You lose everything." That's when Kendra's composure cracked. She rushed toward our mom, kneeling beside her chair, grabbing her hands dramatically. "Mom, you have to sign," she cried. "You don't understand what's happening. The lender we borrowed from, he's not patient. If Jared doesn't pay by Monday..." Her voice broke. "They said they'll kill him." The room went silent. My mom's face drained of color. "Kill," she whispered. Kendra nodded frantically. "They're dangerous people. This is just temporary. Once the investment hits, we pay them back and redeem the house. Please, you can't let me become a widow over a house." A widow? The manipulation was so blatant it made my hands shake. "You're asking her to risk homelessness," I said coldly, "over your boyfriend's gambling debt." "It's not gambling," Jared barked, standing now. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "I have the bank statements," I shot back. "Nevada, casinos, liquor stores." His eyes flickered for half a second. That was enough. Kendra turned back to Mom, lowering her voice to a trembling whisper. This house is old anyway. It's falling apart. Why are you so attached to it? Dad wouldn't want you choosing bricks over your daughter's life. That did it. I stepped directly between them and the coffee table. Enough. Jared moved closer, towering slightly, trying to use his size the way he always did. Like intimidation was just another tool in his pocket. Move, he said quietly, or what I asked. For a moment, it felt like the air itself had stopped moving. I looked down at the pen, trembling in my mother's hand. Her breathing was shallow. Her chest rose and fell too fast. Fear was doing what logic couldn't. I grabbed the folder and flung it across the room. Papers scattered like startled birds. If you don't leave right now, I said, pulling my phone out of my pocket, I'm calling the police. You wouldn't, Jared scoffed. Try me. I started dialing. That's when he hesitated. Kendra looked from me to the phone, panic creeping into her expression. She wasn't crying anymore. The theatrics dropped. Let's go, Jared muttered under his breath, grabbing her arm. They backed toward the door, Jared's glare burning into me like a threat he wasn't ready to voice yet. Kendra paused for one last look at Mom. You're making a mistake, she said bitterly. No, I replied quietly. You already did. The sports car roared back to life minutes later, tires screeching as it sped away. The house fell into silence again. My mom collapsed into the sofa, shaking. I stood there staring at the scattered mortgage documents on the floor, and something became crystal clear. This wasn't desperation anymore. It was escalation, and if I didn't get ahead of it, next time, they wouldn't leave so easily. I picked up my phone. It was time to involve someone who knew the law better than they did. Because this wasn't just a family argument anymore. It was a legal war. 2 hours after I forced them out of the house, I was sitting across from Mr. Marshall in his quiet office, downtown, trying to keep my hands from shaking. His office smelled faintly of old books and polished wood. Everything about it felt steady, controlled, the complete opposite of my life at that moment. I laid the bank statements on his desk first, then the unsigned power of attorney forms. My voice stayed calm as I explained what had happened, but inside, I was still vibrating with leftover adrenaline. He adjusted his glasses and read in silence for a long time. When he finally looked up, his expression wasn't surprised. It was grave. Sabrina, he said carefully, what you're describing isn't just financial misconduct, it's elder abuse. The words landed heavier than I expected. He continued tapping the mortgage documents, attempting to pressure a medically fragile elderly woman into signing over power of attorney under threat of violence. That's coercion. If there's intimidation involved, especially tied to a loan shark claim, it escalates this significantly. I swallowed. So we call the police, I asked. We can, he said. But understand this, right now, it's your word against theirs. They'll claim she misunderstood, or that you're exaggerating. Without concrete proof of coercion, this could drag into civil court for months. Months. We didn't have months. He leaned forward slightly. If they attempt this again, we need undeniable evidence. Video, audio, something that shows force or manipulation clearly enough for law enforcement to intervene immediately. I felt my stomach twist. You're saying, let them try again. I'm saying, he replied calmly, we allow them to believe they still have access. People like this get desperate when they're cornered. Desperation makes mistakes. If they come back and we capture that on record, we can secure restraining orders and criminal charges that will protect your mother permanently. Permanently. That word echoed in my mind. I thought about it, my mom's trembling hand hovering over that pen. About the fear in her eyes when Kendra mentioned death threats. About how easily love had overridden logic. She'll never agree to it, I murmured. You don't need to tell her the full plan, he said gently. You need to keep her safe, long term. Sometimes protection requires strategy. Strategy. That's a clean word for something that felt like betrayal. Because to make this work, I would have to do something that made my chest ache just thinking about it. I would have to leave her alone. I drove straight from his office to an electronics store. I moved through the aisles like someone shopping for ordinary household items, even though my mind was racing. I chose 2 high-definition wireless cameras, small, discreet, motion-activated. My hands felt strangely steady as I paid. Back at home, I waited until Mom went to lie down. She was exhausted from the morning confrontation. Fear takes energy out of a body already weak from heart strain. When her bedroom door closed, I began. The first camera went behind a row of encyclopedias on the living room bookshelf. From there, it had a clear view of the sofa and coffee table exactly where they'd placed the mortgage documents. The second one, I tucked into the thick leaves of the large ficus plant near the window. It angled slightly, downward, capturing both the entrance and the seating area. I connected them to the app on my phone. The screen flickered for a second before the living room appeared in crisp clarity. I zoomed in. I could read the fine print on a document left on the table. Good. I walked through the room, slowly testing motion alerts, checking audio pickup. The microphones caught even the faint rustle of paper. It felt surreal turning my own home into a surveillance zone. I stood in the middle of the living room and whispered, "I'm sorry," even though no one was there to hear it. Because this plan required something else. I had to make them think I was gone. When I went into Mom's bedroom later that evening, she looked up at me with wary eyes. "They won't come back, will they?" she asked. I forced a reassuring smile. "I have to cover a night shift at the pharmacy," I said, grabbing my coat. "We need the overtime." Her face tightened. I don't like being alone. Every instinct in me screamed to cancel the plan right there, to stay, to sit beside her and guard the door myself. But guarding once wasn't enough. I needed something that would stop this forever. "I'll be back in the morning," I said gently. "Lock both doors. Don't open them for anyone." She nodded reluctantly. When I stepped outside and heard the deadbolt slide into place behind me, my chest felt hollow. I drove down the street, then turned the corner, then another. I circled back quietly and parked 2 blocks away where the house was barely visible. The sky had darkened completely by then. Street lights cast long shadows across the pavement. I opened the app on my phone. There it was. My living room. Empty, quiet. Lamps glowing softly. Mom sitting in her armchair, a blanket over her knees, glancing occasionally toward the door. I rested my phone against the steering wheel and exhaled slowly. This was the part no one prepares you for. Waiting. I wasn't just watching a screen. I was watching the possibility that my own sister would choose greed over blood again. And I hated that I already knew the answer. So I sat there in the darkness of my parked car engine off heart, pounding steadily in my ears, and waited. The notification came at 11:42 p.m. Sabrina had been staring at the tiny live feed window on her phone for so long that her eyes felt dry and grainy. The parked car smelled faintly of stale coffee and cold vinyl. She had just begun to wonder if the silence meant they wouldn't come tonight, when her screen flashed red. Motion detected rear entrance. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The camera view jittered slightly as the sensor adjusted to the movement. The backyard, washed in pale moonlight, looked still for half a second. Then a shadow slipped along the fence line. Another figure followed. Jared. Even in the grainy night vision, his posture was unmistakable. Broad shoulders, aggressive stance, a restless energy that never seemed to settle. Kendra hovered a step behind him, her silhouette thinner, more hesitant, but not retreating. Sabrina's fingers went cold around her phone. "Please don't," she whispered to no one. The back door handle rattled once, then again. On the third attempt, the camera caught Jared stepping back, looking around, and then driving his shoulder forward. The crack of splintering wood echoed faintly through the phone's speaker. Sabrina inhaled sharply. He hit it again. The doorframe gave way. The feed shook as the back door burst inward, slamming against the kitchen wall. The motion alert pulsed brighter as both figures moved inside. Sabrina's entire body went rigid. They hadn't even tried to hide it. Inside, the kitchen camera picked up their shapes, moving quickly. Jared's voice carried first, low, irritated. "Mom, we know you're here." In the living room camera, her mother appeared seconds later, small, fragile in her robe, leaning on the arm of the couch for support. She looked confused, frightened, blinking into the sudden light Jared had switched on. "Kendra?" she asked weakly. "What's going on?" Sabrina's throat closed. Jared stormed into the frame. "We don't have time for this," he barked. "You need to sign the papers tonight." He shoved a folder onto the coffee table. Loose sheets spilled out. Her mother stared at them like they were written in another language. I thought we talked about this." Kendra stepped forward, voice strained but firm. "Mom, we have to do this. You don't understand how serious it is." Jared's temper flared instantly. "She understands just fine," he snapped, turning on her mother again. "You said you'd help your daughter." The kitchen camera caught something crashing to the floor. Sabrina's eyes darted to the split view. Jared had swept his arm across the counter in frustration. Pill bottles tumbled and scattered across the tile, rolling in different directions. One cracked open, tiny white tablet spilling like beads. Her mother gasped. "Those are my heart pills." "Then sign," Jared roared. Sabrina's hand shook so violently, she almost dropped the phone. He grabbed the stack of papers, flipping to a marked page. "Right here, power of attorney. Then the mortgage goes through tomorrow." Her mother tried to bend to retrieve the pills, but she was too slow. Jared kicked one bottle aside. Kendra didn't stop him. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she crouched beside their mother and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Mom," she said softly, almost soothingly, "you don't want those men coming back. You heard what they said." Sabrina's stomach twisted. So this was it. The loan shark threat turned into a weapon. Her mother looked up, panic spreading across her face. What men? Jared stepped closer, towering over her. "The kind who don't knock," he said coldly. "The kind who break things." He slammed his palm against the wall for emphasis. Her mother shrank back. Kendra tightened her grip on her arm. "You promised to protect me, Kendra," whispered, tears suddenly filling her eyes. "You're my mother." It was calculated, perfectly timed. Guilt, fear, obligation. Jared bent down, shoving a pen into her trembling hand. "Sign." Her mother's hand shook so badly the pen scratched uselessly across the page. I need Sabrina," she said faintly. "No," Jared barked instantly. He grabbed her wrist. hard. Sabrina felt something inside her snap. Jared hauled her mother halfway to her feet. The older woman cried out, her balance failing as he dragged her toward the coffee table. "You are going to fix this," he screamed inches from her face. Kendra stood hovering beside them, not intervening. "Jared," she said, but there was no force behind it. No real attempt to stop him. Her mother's breathing grew ragged. I can't breathe." That was enough. Sabrina hit the emergency call button. 911, what's your emergency? "My name is Sabrina Morales," she said, forcing her voice steady while her entire body shook. "My sister and her boyfriend just broke into my mother's house. They're assaulting her. I have it on video. I'm streaming it to cloud storage right now." As she spoke, she tapped the recording back up. The footage uploaded automatically, time-stamped undeniable. Inside the house, Jared shook her mother again. "Sign the damn paper," she whimpered. Kendra looked at the scattered pills on the floor, then at the pen, then at their mother's face. "Mom," she whispered urgently, "just do it." Sabrina felt sick. Sirens began faintly in the distance. She didn't know if they were for someone else or for her. "Officers are on their way," the dispatcher said. Inside the living room, Jared froze. He must have heard it too. The red and blue reflection flickered faintly against the wall near the window. Kendra's head snapped toward the front of the house. "What did you do?" she hissed. Jared released her mother so abruptly, she collapsed back onto the couch. The sirens grew louder, closer. Sabrina's heart pounded so hard it hurt. Through the front camera, she saw it, flashing lights turning onto their street. Police cruisers, the house flooded with red and blue. Inside, panic replaced fury on Jared's face, and Sabrina, sitting in the dark car across the street, kept recording. The sirens didn't slow down. They grew louder until they were right outside the house. Red and blue lights pulsed violently across the walls inside the living room. Jared spun toward the front window, panic cracking through his arrogance for the first time. "Police," a voice thundered from outside. "Open the door." Jared swore under his breath. "You called them," he barked at Kendra. She looked genuinely shaken now. "I didn't." The front door shook under a heavy knock. "Police open up?" Instead of complying, Jared bolted toward the hallway like he might run out the back, like he could undo what he'd already done. He didn't make it 3 steps. The front door splintered inward under the force of a battering ram. Officers flooded into the living room in a rush of dark uniforms and flashing lights. "Down, get on the ground." Jared froze for half a second, just long enough to make the wrong choice. He turned, raising his hands, halfway mouth open in protest. 2 officers tackled him before he could finish whatever lie he was about to tell. He hit the floor hard. "Don't move." Kendra screamed as one officer secured Jared's arms behind his back. Another officer stepped between Kendra and their mother, assessing the scene quickly. The scattered pills, the overturned chair, the broken back door. Sabrina pushed her car door open and ran. Her legs felt weak, but driven by pure adrenaline. By the time she reached the front entrance, officers were hauling Jared upright in handcuffs. "You can't do this," Jared shouted. "This is a family matter." Sabrina stepped inside, phone still clutched in her hand. "It stopped being a family matter when you broke down the door," she said, her voice steady in a way that surprised even her. Jared's eyes snapped to her. Fury burned there. "You set this up," he spat. "Yes," Sabrina said calmly. "I did." She turned her phone toward the nearest officer. "I have everything recorded. The forced entry, the threats, the assault. It's already backed up to the cloud." The officer took the phone carefully. Jared's face drained of color. Kendra, meanwhile, had shifted gears entirely. She wasn't screaming anymore. She was crying. "It's not what it looks like," she sobbed, stepping toward the officers. "We were just trying to talk to her. He didn't mean to grab her like that. We're under a lot of pressure." "Ma'am, please step back," the officer instructed firmly. Kendra pointed at Sabrina. "She hates me. She's been trying to turn Mom against me for months." Sabrina felt the sting of it, but didn't react. Their mother was still sitting on the couch, breathing shallowly. One officer knelt beside her, checking her pulse and asking gentle questions. "Did he hurt you, ma'am?" Her mother's eyes were fixed on Jared being restrained. He grabbed me," she whispered. Kendra rushed toward her. "Mom, tell them it was an accident. Please. You know we'd never hurt you." Sabrina stepped forward, placing herself between them. "Don't," she said quietly. Kendra's tears intensified. "Mom, you know I love you. I was scared. Those men." "Stop," Sabrina said sharply. The officer handed her phone back. "We've seen enough." Sabrina moved to her mother's side and crouched down. "Mom," she said softly, "you need to hear this." She pressed play. Jared's recorded voice filled the room. "You are going to fix this." The sound of pills scattering. Her mother's frightened gasp. "Sign the damn paper." Kendra's voice followed, clear, undeniable. "Just do it." The room went very still. Even Jared stopped shouting. Her mother's face changed as she listened. Not in shock, not in confusion, in clarity. The denial that had protected her cracked wide open. Kendra shook her head desperately. "Mom, that's not..." He was upset. "I was just trying to calm things down." The recording continued. Jared threatening. Kendra reinforcing the pressure. Her mother closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something was different. Not fragile, not uncertain, resolved. She looked directly at Kendra. "You let him hurt me." Kendra's face crumpled. "No." "You stood there," her mother continued, voice trembling but steady enough to cut. "You asked me to sign." Tears streamed down Kendra's face. "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," her mother said. The words landed heavy in the room. Jared struggled against the officer holding him. "This is ridiculous." She's confused, but her mother's gaze never left Kendra. "I defended you," she whispered. "When Sabrina told me about the money, I said my daughter would never steal from me." Kendra's breathing hitched. "You did," her mother said. "And tonight, you let him treat me like I was nothing." Silence swallowed the space between them. Then came the words Sabrina never thought she would hear. "I don't have a daughter who would do this." Kendra went still. "Mom, please." "No," her mother said, her voice breaking now, but not backing down. "You are not welcome in my home anymore." The officers began guiding Jared toward the door. Kendra followed, still crying, still trying to speak, but no one was listening now. The flashing lights faded as they were placed into separate patrol cars. The front door hung crooked on its hinges. The house smelled like splintered wood and cold night air. When the last cruiser pulled away, silence settled over everything. Heavy, absolute. Sabrina knelt in front of her mother. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then her mother reached forward and pulled Sabrina into her arms. The sob that escaped her was deep years of denial, fear, and heartbreak, finally breaking free. Sabrina held her tightly. "It's over," she whispered. And in the quiet that followed, for the first time in weeks, the house felt still. The courtroom was smaller than Sabrina expected. After everything, the break-in, the recordings, the nights of fear, It felt strange that it all came down to a quiet room with polished wood benches and the steady hum of fluorescent lights. Jared didn't look invincible anymore. When the judge read the sentence, 5 years in state prison for burglary, assault, and attempted financial exploitation, his jaw tightened, but he didn't explode the way he used to. The evidence had been too clear. The video had spoken when he tried to lie. 5 years? It wasn't forever, but it was enough. Kendra stood next. She wore a soft cardigan, her hair pulled back neatly, as if presentation might undo what had happened. Her attorney emphasized her cooperation and emotional distress. The judge acknowledged her lack of prior record, probation, mandatory counseling, community service, and a permanent restraining order. She was not to contact her mother, not by phone, not in person, not through intermediaries. When the judge said the words, "permanent restraining order," Sabrina felt her mother's hand tighten around hers. Kendra didn't look at them when it was over. She walked out of the courtroom, staring straight ahead as if they were strangers. A month later, the hospital lights replaced courtroom ones. The heart surgery had been scheduled carefully once the stress had settled, and the doctors felt confident her mother was strong enough. Sabrina sat through every consultation signed, every form memorized, every statistic. The procedure lasted 4 hours. They felt like 4 years. When the surgeon finally stepped into the waiting room and said, "It went well," Sabrina felt her knees nearly give out. Recovery was slow but steady. For the first time in a long time, her mother began to look lighter. Not just physically stronger, but unburdened. The constant anxiety that had hovered around her seemed to fade once the legal storm passed. The old house, though, carried too many echoes. The broken door had been repaired, the walls repainted, but neither of them could walk through the living room without remembering flashing lights and raised voices. It was her mother's idea. "I think I'm ready to let it go," she said, quietly, one afternoon. Selling the family home felt like closing a chapter. Neither of them had chosen, but both had survived. They found a small, secure apartment in a building with elevators, cameras, and neighbors who smiled in the hallway. It felt safe. That mattered more than space. The letters began 2 weeks after sentencing. Thick envelopes, familiar handwriting. Kendra. The first one arrived addressed in looping ink, "Mommy." Sabrina saw her mother's hands tremble when she recognized it. "I don't need to read it," her mother said, after a long pause. If there was something she needed to say, she should have said it before. Sabrina didn't open it. She carried it to the kitchen sink, lit a match, and watched the paper curl inward as the flame consumed it. The ash scattered like gray snow. More letters came. Apologies, explanations, pleas. They all met the same ending. It wasn't about revenge, it was about peace. Sabrina learned something she hadn't wanted to learn, that love without boundaries isn't kindness. That protecting someone sometimes means standing between them and the people they wish they could still believe in. Her mother no longer defended Kendra. She no longer blamed herself either. Some wounds don't disappear, but they stop bleeding. And in the quiet of their new apartment, with sunlight coming gently through unbroken windows, Sabrina understood that protecting the people you love isn't cruelty, it's courage. What began with betrayal ended with truth and the quiet strength it takes to protect the ones who once protected you. Standing up to toxic family isn't easy, especially when love and history blur the lines. But sometimes courage means drawing them clearly. If this story moved you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you believe in justice and healing, stay with us for more real stories. Take care of yourself, and goodbye for now.